After Michael the Brave's brief rule, fighting continued not only between the Turks and the Habsburgs, but also between the various Hungarian factions, some supported by the Austrians and some seeking the help of the Porte. Nevertheless, at a time when the Turks were less present in Europe, some Transylvanian princes managed to hold on to the power for longer and even played a part in the politics of Central and Western Europe. Of the Hungarian magnate families who gave princes to Transylvania during that time, at least three are worthy of mention: Bathory, whom we have already came across, Bethlen, and Rákóczi. The 30 Years' War, which began in Bohemia in 1618 as a war between Catholics supported by the Emperor and the Protestant princes, only ended in 1648 after the intervention of Catholic France on the side of the Protestants in order to curtail Habsburg supremacy in Germany. Prince Gabriel Bethlen, who would rule Transylvania for 16 years, played an important part in the conflict, so that, for a while, his principality appeared as a somewhat significant political entity to Westerners. In the meantime, however, the Romanians remained in the shadow of the three nations. Even when they served as soldiers, they were allowed to hold on to their Orthodox faith, but were excluded from political life, apart from the few who had become integrated in the Hungarian nobility. The Rákóczi family, George I and George II, ruled one after the other between 1630 and 1660, and both of them maintained very close ties with the voivodes of Wallachia and Moldavia. There was even a short-lived resistance against the Turks under George II Rákóczi in 1659, joined by Mihnea III of Wallachia and Constantin Șerban of Moldavia. The Turks swiftly restored control by deposing all three voivodes. The siege of Vienna in 1683 and its aftermath, the Peace of Karlovitz. An event which happened at the end of the 17th century had unexpected consequences for the Balkans. In one of their last bouts of aggression, under Grand Vizier of the Albanian Coprulu family, the Turks launched a great offensive against the Habsburgs and besieged Vienna in 1683. The voivodes of Wallachia and Moldavia, Șerban Cantacuzino and George Ducas, were forced to join the Turkish army, but after Polish forces under King Ian Sobieski joined the battle, the Turks were defeated and withdrew. Gradually, the Austrians and their allies, the Poles, the Venetians, and later the Russians, set out on a long but successful counteroffensive. The war lasted for 16 years, which ended in 1699 with the Treaty of Karlawitz. The principal negotiator of this peace treaty was Alexander Mavrocordatos, dragoman of the Porte, a position similar to a foreign affairs minister. He became a prominent character in European politics through his close ties with foreign ambassador in Constantinople, and even corresponded directly with the emperor, who actually made him a count of the Holy Roman Empire, a highly coveted title across Europe. Mavrocordatos managed to persuade each side that the other wanted peace, and both eventually agreed to the Treaty of Karlawitz, which was in fact disastrous for the Turks. Venice was to keep Morea, the Peloponnese, and part of the Dalmatian coast. Poland got Pokutia and part of Ukraine, Russia got the Azov, while the Austrians got all of Hungary, Slovenia, part of Croatia and Serbia, as well as Transylvania, after lengthy negotiation with the estates in the Principality. For several years now, the dramatic events of the former Yugoslavia have been the center of attention, and the tragedy of Kosovo has led to the intervention of Western Europe and the United States via NATO. In light of this, I want to emphasize an event of paramount importance which took place 300 years ago during that war. At one point, the imperial armies, having advanced too far into the Balkans, were beaten back several dozen kilometers by a Turkish counteroffensive. In the year 1690, the Serbs, who had dared to help the imperial forces, feared Turkish reprisals. Thus, led by Patriarch Arsenie III, they left their ancestral homes by the hundreds of thousands and took refuge behind the Austrian border. This massive displacement became known to the Serbs as the Great Migration. The estimates range between 200,000 and 500,000 people. The most accurate record speaks of 37,000 families, but as a Serbian Zadruga, including the children and grandparents, was more likely to number 10-15 members in those days, not just 5-6 such as modern-day family would, I feel more inclined towards the 500,000 estimate, roughly the same as the population of Wallachia. That was how most of Kosovo and medieval Serbia were left empty. The Austrians colonized some of these refugees in the Banat to the detriment of Romanians, some in Vojvodina to the detriment of Hungarians, and some in Croatia, in a region later called Krajina, move that lies at the origin of many modern conflicts in that part of the Balkans.